Now, riding high on the three-state decisive victory, the central government is now preparing itself for the 2024 general election. And the best way to gauge the nation's mood is to ask the 140 crore citizens what they think of the government, its policies and schemes, and where do they think is the government lagging behind. Therefore, the BJP has come up with the Jan Man survey, available on NaMo app, where citizens can log on, participate in this expansive survey and rate the government. This survey surely has its advantages, for it helps the government to gauge the nation's pulse of its citizens and gives enough time to inculcate the feedback it receives from the people. Will these surveys like Jan survey that is being carried forward by the BJP help it perform better in the next elections? Let's try to gauge the responses of my analysts on the telecast with me. Professor Madhav Nalapat, this is not the first time that there has been a survey that has been put out on the NaMo app. And it's important to note the kind of questions that have been asked on this survey. The questions include: how do you rate the overall performance of Modi government? Do you feel optimistic about the future compared to the past? What is your opinion of India's growing stature? Have you personally benefited from any of the schemes? Is your MP accessible and visible in the constituency? Are you aware of your MP's initiatives? Is your MP popular in your constituency? So it is kind of a report card that the Prime Minister and his team is going to get after the responses it receives from the number of people who have finally taken part in this survey and given feedback.
Well, Megha, I'd like to point out first that the fact that this kind of a survey can be done digitally and will be a fairly accurate mood of the nation indicates how far the digital world has entered the lives of our citizens. That, I would say more than 70% of our population is now digitally regularly connected. And it's in a matter of 2 or 3 years, I'm very certain that figure will rise to 90% plus. So for the first time, you can get an accurate reading of the nation's mood through a digital survey. Whereas, in the past, it could not happen because the number of people who could be accessible on a digital survey would be far less than what was needed to give an accurate reflection. That's the first point. Second point is that I think it's a very good indicator of what people think of their representatives. And, the reality is the representatives are there for the people. They're supposed to work for the people. They're supposed to utilize all the various schemes of the central government and many of the schemes of the state governments for the benefit of their constituents. Now, MPs are regularly supposed to hold meetings of constituents. In the United Kingdom, for example, they're called surgeries. The MP, basically meets his constituents, her constituents, finds out the issues, finds out the problems, sees what can be done, and tries to do something. I think, in our country, we have got huge numbers of people on every parliamentary seat. So it may not be possible to meet everybody, but broad groups of people, one can certainly assist. And broad groups of people are very, very important in an election. So I think these are very, very important questions when you are basically framing the narrative for the Lok Sabha, and secondly, deliberating on whether, X or Y, frankly, is good, or whether, to avoid the mistake that was made in Karnataka, where unfortunately you had a pretty unpopular, set of people in Karnataka, and they were unchanged, frankly. And as a consequence, the BJP lost very heavily, not because of the national factor. Prime Minister Modi gave the BJP many more seats than it would otherwise have got, but the state factor, where frankly, both the performance as well as the attitude of the people towards the BJP-led government was not very.
I completely agree with you. Joyita, quickly getting a response from you as well. Now, this is a very accurate yardstick of measuring how your minister, how your member of the parliament from the constituency you have won from is performing. is he giving enough time, energy and funds to the people who require the most upliftment? Have the schemes then reached to the lowest common denominator? And then this allows the government and the party high command to make decisions accordingly as to who is going to be fielded from which constituency.
Well, it is a measure of, the popularity of the MP, whether that MP should be repeated or not. But you see, the problem with all such surveys is that any online survey, it is also limited in terms of the reach. I mean, although a whole lot of people are there online, a lot of people follow the app, but perhaps it may not be enough just to have a survey on an app to find out exactly what the mood of the people is. Because for this to actually work, I think what they will also be doing, I am certain they are also going to do, take it to the ground level. All right, because until and unless you have kind of, I mean, it's okay, our constituency has lakhs, and when it comes to Lok Sabha elections, you are talking about lakhs and lakhs of people. So maybe 10,000 people from one constituency they are giving their opinion, but that may not be enough. So I think what they will need to do also is to ensure that this survey reaches right to the grassroots, right to the down level of the villages. Of course, internet penetration is very high in the country currently. We have seen how well that Jan Dhan, Aadhaar and mobile network worked, because of which disbursal of benefits has become so easy and possible. So the mobile availability is also there, but there has to be dissemination of information about that. This is this is an information that the Prime Minister is seeking from the people. So you see, I am certain, BJP will have to, carry out ad campaigns, take the message to the ground that we want as many people's response as possible.
Right.
And there has to be secrecy. Okay, the secrecy has to be maintained when it comes to, secrecy to protect the identity of the people who have responded. Because that is very, very, very crucial for any constituency, for any voter, because these are all future prospective voters. That is what is a very important component of it.
Okay. There's one aspect that I have observed over here, Professor Nalapal, and the thing is that when you download the app and you take a look at the survey, and there is an expansive list of questions that have been asked with multiple choice type answers. And the concern over here is that the medium of language that has been used is English. Now, what is the target audience for this survey to be put out to begin with? And then does this also exclude a larger percentage of the population who are also the primary beneficiaries of a number of projects and schemes that have been launched?
Well, there's no doubt that any single app obviously would have the problems that Joyita points out, would basically have the limited scope that Joyita has very correctly pointed out. But I would like to make a very important point, which is that wherever there was a time, for example, about more than 3 decades ago, when you traveled in the Hindi belt, you encountered very few people who spoke English. More than 3 decades ago, 3.5 decades ago, let's say. Today, that's not the situation. Almost everywhere you go, you find individuals who speak English, and that language has become basically popular because it is seen as a help to the future, and that is correct. And you have state governments, BJP-led state governments, Uttar Pradesh, for example, where they encourage the study of English because they want to help the young people in Uttar Pradesh to succeed well in life, not just in the Hindi-speaking states, but all over the country and indeed across the world. So from that point of view, I think, yes, the language is restrictive, and certainly I'm sure that similar surveys would need to be conducted, if they're not already being conducted, in regional languages as well. There's no question about that. But I would like to just make one point here, Megha, and that is, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is the one leader in the country who has got very broad support across a huge spectrum of the Indian population. You take a state like Kerala, for example, where the BJP, I think at one point in time they have one MLA. But the fact of the matter is, wherever you go, you find individuals who are appreciative of, you can even say admire Prime Minister Modi, across regions, across states, across all these groups of community and others. You find that kind of respect for the Prime Minister and regard for the Prime Minister. So from that point of view, the app is representative of a very large cross section of people. And as you know, in sampling, you don't sample the entire population. You sample a certain, a limited, very limited number of a population. And if your selection is properly done, that sample becomes extremely accurate.
Okay.
And that I think would be one of the reasons why I'm fairly certain a reasonably accurate picture of the national mood, not completely, yes, but really accurate, would be gleaned from this survey.
Okay. Very interesting observation, once again pointed by Professor Nalapat. We talk about the state of Kerala, where people would largely speak Malayalam and they will also speak in English. We take a look at Tamil Nadu, we take a look at Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka. Now, and then there are, the larger percentage of the population of our country that speaks in English would be in metros and tier 2 and tier 1 cities, besides the southern belt. So, can we at this point of time also consider that this survey has been put out keeping in mind certain section of the population for certain areas, for certain regions?
Is that for me?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, I think that's what exactly they have done it. I think it's just a starting point, because you see there is no way that an English survey, English language survey is going to serve the purpose of assessing the voters' mood in 543 constituencies. It cannot happen like that, and especially in states like, say, even Bengal, I would say Bihar, UP, large parts of the country. It's a fact that they will not be very comfortable trying to reply in English. And the other thing is, you see, the problem with another problem is, you see, they have to be very careful about it in terms of, so that no MP tries to subvert and manipulate the survey to show that he is hugely popular. All he has to do is, get 1,000 people. He may be very extremely unpopular in his constituency, but all he has to do is that he has to just get 1,000 people, maybe organize, and ensuring voting from all over the country, and suddenly we see that, this man portrays himself to be a very popular man. So, in spite of that survey, I think what will ultimately matter is what the ground report is like.
Right.
What there has to be ground feedback. There has to be cross-checking of the, the authenticity of the vote, because that is one problem that may happen when it comes to digital voting, because one person with several mobile numbers, can always go and vote from, in a particular direction. So, the possibility of manipulation is also very high. So, whoever is ultimately going to enumerate the survey, they will have to be very careful, and they have to
keep all these
points in mind.
Yeah. Otherwise, it will defeat the purpose of doing that survey. Professor Nalapat, another important aspect over here, that can opposition parties take a leaf out of BJP's notebook? Because, like I said, not the first time that a survey like this has been conducted on such a large scale, and is the opposition parties then, what is holding the opposition parties to do similar surveys in their constituencies or across the country to get to know the mood of the people?
Well, Megha, I'd like to point out that I have the good fortune of knowing several individuals who are not in the ruling party, and many of them are friends of mine. I have some very strong views, they have some very strong views, but that's a different matter. And I can assure you that in most of the large political parties, I can certainly say of the Congress party, the Aam Aadmi party, even the Samajwadi party under Akhilesh, quite possibly, what they even the RJD now, under its now more youthful, leadership. I can assure you that this kind of surveys are being conducted. Of course, they are being conducted privately, and I'm sure the results are being kept confidential. But there is no question that these surveys are now being conducted across the country, across the political spectrum. I would say very few parties would now be in a situation where they do not conduct such survey. And certainly, I mean, two or three parties, the Congress party definitely, the Aam Aadmi party very definitely, they are very intensively, conducting surveys on several aspects of the public mood.
Okay.
So what's happened here I'm sure, happening in the opposition space as well. Having said that, I'd like to point out, and I would say Joyita has made some very, very important points, and if I may say so, very practical points. But I'd also like to say that, yes, let's say that, I am of a certain age. I am an admirer of NaMo, and I may find it difficult to answer these questions in English. But then what do? I call my son or my nephew or possibly my granddaughter, and she will answer it for me. She'll take down my answers and answer it perfectly. In fact, where the digital space is concerned, the younger you are, the more proficient you are. So that way, you're not sitting alone in a room without anybody. In our country, fortunately, we believe in family, and the entire family will chip in. So generations can chip in. Now, again, a very important point about trying to fix this kind of a survey to give a good impression about. Look, there are tracking systems in place to check where individuals are, to check what they're up to, and somebody who's contacted over 1,000 households, very frankly, if that person is not being tracked, if the effort of that person to try and rig the vote, in his favor, that online vote, I would be very surprised if it's not being tracked.
Right.
So again, I would say overall, I am a firm believer in statistical surveys. And I'm a very firm believer that if done properly, surveys can be effective. And I think it's a very welcome survey that's been done on the NaMo app and in the English language, which frankly is a useful language for everybody in India. And I think, but I agree.
Particularly in southern, particularly in the tier 1, tier 2 cities and the south part of the country.
Even up to villages, I can tell you, panchayats.
Yeah.
The country has changed a lot in 30 years. And the country has changed very much since 2014.
Okay. Joyita, then another question crops in my mind is about the process of conducting surveys, but at the same time, the dissemination of the information, propagation of the survey being conducted. Listen, there is a Janman survey that is being conducted, that is available on NaMo app. That is in fact more important than this survey that is being put out on the app for people to take, in terms of the BJP party wanting to get a feedback from them. Now, how successful is the government going to be in sending out the message, telling the people to take this survey, letting them know that there is a survey available on NaMo app?
Well, the BJP is very, very effective when it comes to its domestic audience. I would not say that the government's messaging internationally always works very well. But at the same time, when it comes to the BJP and when it comes to the government nationally, I think they work very well. And I'm certain you'll be soon seeing television advertisements, newspaper advertisements about this, take this survey and all. And the whole idea is, you see, you can do a fair assessment only when your message has reached the grassroots. And I would not be surprised that that is exactly what they are there, because this is just the first time. I think the press release came yesterday, it started after that, it is just the one day. So, and I'm certain they will be conducting this survey for a long time now, until for the next few months. So, these are just the beginnings. So, let us wait and see how it works out, but I'm certain they will be coming out, they will be giving it a mega push, given how the BJP has been functioning.
Yeah. Professor Nalapat, there is one more aspect to the survey. I was able to go through the entirety of it, and a very important focus has been given on the schemes that have been launched, on the yojanas that if the beneficiaries have been able to benefit from them. So that there were a set of 3-4 questions that have been segregated to allow for whether to know from the people, have they benefited from these schemes, whether these schemes have been able to reach them and their families and their households, whether the funds that were promised by the Prime Minister under various schemes have reached their accounts. So we get to understand the various aspects of it, and one important aspect being the schemes and the welfare projects that have been launched.
Megha, you asked a very, very important question. And may I point out, there are some states that have launched some schemes where payment is still made through the old methods, not directly into your bank account, but via intermediaries. And very often you find there is a gap between the amount promised and the amount received, whereas you don't have that when the amount comes directly into your bank account. Now, there are states where some schemes are not coming directly into your bank account. Many of the schemes are state government schemes that are not very friendly to this kind of an approach. But I would say that it is a very important way of testing the efficiency and reach of these schemes. And if you have a system in which you have payment directly to your bank account, I think that's a very, very big improvement over a situation in which middlemen were involved. And then those who are, getting it directly, supposing you're getting a particular scheme directly, and you're getting a particular scheme through some other level of government, and it ceases to be direct, and then you look at the difference, it will be a big difference. The fact is that a lot of methods have been transformed in the way governance is delivered, and I think that's a very important consideration to take in mind while voting. So from that point of view, again, as you very correctly said, this will be a very important way of judging how much of a scheme is really, how much of the expenditure is really reaching the intended beneficiary. There was a time when, where Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, for example, openly admitted that maybe 15% is reaching the intended beneficiary. There were so many intermediaries on the way. Now we should go to 100%. And if you have digital payment directly, it goes to 100%. But I think this is a very important check on that. You have individuals with NaMo Act in states that are not at all, where the BJP is nowhere near power. And you may have schemes where you don't have digital payment directly into your bank account. And I think the difference is striking. And I think it's something that people need to pay attention to.
Right. Joyita, again, we talk about the schemes and projects and the 4 pillars on which the BJP has been then doing its campaigns and then decisively winning elections as well, as we had seen in the 3 states of Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh. And those 4 pillars have been farmers, youth, women and the poor. And this is also very reflective in the questions that have been asked for feedback from those who are taking this survey. So when we talk about Swachh Bharat or women empowerment, or we talk about job opportunities, we talk about entrepreneurial opportunities, Mudra loan, we talk about Swanidhi Yojana, all of this has been covered. So again, we'll then this is very understandable and expected as well, that these are the 4 planks on which BJP is then going to be fighting its 2024 Lok Sabha elections as well.
Well, the thing is, you see, these are not just the planks. Of course, this will be the primary planks, I would say. But there are several other issues, certain regions have got their own issues and all. But yes, because you see, apart from these issues, there will be issues like safety and security, there will be issues like nationalism, there will be, some kind of talk about in terms of India's standing in the international circles. All these issues will also come to matter, and this we will be getting. But yes, we have got the primary focus on them, on the women, the poor, the youth. So, but the thing is that at the same time, primary focus, if you look at it, at the core of it is development. Okay, because everything else is an offshoot from that. So, I am certain that is what he is going to talk about. I mean, 1 or 2 speeches, and of course, when we are talking about it, it's about Modi ki guarantee.
Right.
that you are going to get all these things. This is what I think this is what the overall thrust will be.
Okay. I have with me Himanshu Bhatt as well. He's joined belatedly. But Himanshu, giving you a synopsis of what we are discussing about the NaMo app and the Janman survey that has been launched just 24 hours ago. Now, in terms of the focal areas of interest that the government has shown in asking questions to the people has been about the projects that have been launched. Now, there is the Kalyan Yatra that had also been launched by the Prime Minister, and it is at this point of time traversing the length and breadth of the country. And from the survey as well, it is quite reflective of what the government's focus areas are.
Yes, they are. And the most important thing is, in that survey, they have asked people, what do you think of the performance of your own MPs? Now, see, this is important in democracy. One thing you must not forget that, the schemes and benefits which are given by the government, when it directly reaches the people, it changes their mindset. And on top of that, there is a very huge emphasis on women. If you see the core voter of Narendra Modi, brand Modi I'm talking about, more than 60% are women, irrespective of the age. And that's a fact of life. The basic reason behind that is because he's provided them dignity, he's provided them the basic facilities, which people forgot.
Right.
Providing a toilet in the house is a big thing. And when, a complainant from some remote village in a Lok Sabha constituency complains that my MP has not visited us even once, or I have not got the benefit of this, in this survey, if that comes out, what's going to happen? There
Right,
are going
absolutely.
to be a few MPs, who are going to
Absolutely.
lose them.
Yeah.
Lose.
Agreed.
seats.
Totally agreed. Totally agreed. All right. I'm out of time, but I thank all of you for joining me on the telecast and keeping in mind how things play out for the 2024 Lok Sabha elections. This is definitely going to be a very accessible and a somewhat accurate dipstick of the mood of the people, the pulse of the nation, and how the BJP is then going to go ahead forging its way and plan to fight the 2024 general election. Thanks for watching.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.